Hey everyone, welcome to the HVAC Diablo podcast. Today we're going to be shooting the breeze with Ty and Kevin. Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, what's going on?
Not much, man. How about you?
Another day in paradise, man. Got no complaints today.
Nice.
So what's good? Anything new? Anything interesting this week out in the field?
Like
Oh,
every
I did
other
a
week.
gas swap that went incredibly wrong. That's about it.
A gas swap. Ooh, tell us all about it. How did it go?
Oh, 22 to 448. And yeah, me and my apprentice were 20 hours into the job by the time we got it back up and running.
Wow.
If it could go wrong, it could go wrong. Couldn't get vapor pulled out because of bad valving. And I think we had the oil blocking the refrigerant to the point you could open the system and there was still refrigerant in the system. It didn't start boiling until we put it in a vacuum.
Fun.
Trapped it under some cold, thick oil.
Yeah, these colder temps make it harder to get rid of that refrigerant. It doesn't want to burn off, and the oil doesn't want to move
Oh,
as
yeah.
easy. And especially if you're
When
probably
you
going,
can't pull vapor out of the receiver.
yeah, and then depends on how big your system is too.
650 pounds.
Yeah, that takes all day just to recover.
Or
Yeah.
two.
We were cold. Ambient was well below 30.
That'll cause
That's when
that
you
issue
gotta.
for sure.
That's definitely one of those days you gotta apply some heat to the unit.
Oh, yeah. Problem we had there was once we found that we trapped that oil and that refrigerant into the receiver, we'd already been running vacuum pumps, so we already had too much 22 already in the room. So as soon as we went to light torches, you just couldn't run them. Start gassing yourself.
That's
I ended up making just a heat trace cord.
Especially with the big commercial, it's always a big
There we
deal
go.
like that, trying to pull out all the refrigerant.
Did you have to change
Yeah, I
some
ended up just getting
ISO
self-regulating heat trace and wrapping the receiver. Sorry, what was that?
Did you have to change out some ISO valves on there? Were they leaking?
Yeah, the defrost bypass valve for the hot gas went bad. Then we put one with a bypass solenoid in it. And then I had an isolation valve that failed as well. So when we had all the gas out, we might as well do all the repairs.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good time to do it.
Got better 2 days later when the scaffolders showed up to remove the scaffolding and knocked the access fitting off the suction line, and we lost 200 pounds of gas out of it.
Damn. That was fun.
Wrong.
What could go wrong went wrong.
Yeah, I ran into I ran into my fair share of accidents with people. I remember probably this was years ago. I was first starting off in the trade. The gardeners were using a hedge trimmer and they pinched off the liquid line on a split system, and the line set was running right behind the hedge. They just trimmed it right off, and they called their company to go fix it. And they said, we asked if the homeowner was there. Nobody was there. They didn't even know that the unit was down or anything. So we had to find out how to get a hold of them and do all that stuff to try to get it all fixed up and repaired for them.
Oh my God. So what are the normal refrigerants you guys deal with on your daily?
410A for me is probably one of the big ones. I do a lot of 404A for refrigerant. R22 on some of the older systems. Obviously, there's still quite a few train and telepacks out there that are running R22 that we're servicing right now, but that's about it. That's a little bit of the newer refrigerants for refrigeration and everything, but nothing crazy for me on my end at least.
Any 407C?
A few systems. They don't, we got really high ambience out here, so a lot of the blends you kind of notice the efficiency loss, a lot of the performance issues when it's 120-degree day outside and you're not using R22 anymore and You get an old system that's already underperforming. It should have been out of there years ago, but we got to make it work somehow.
Yep. Yeah, we turned a lot of 22s into 407C just because, they didn't want to change it out. So that was the next option. So it works, but you're right. It depends what location you're at. Um, the glide isn't as good as 22. So it's time to get them out of there.
Yeah, my main site that uses half my time, it's a blend of everything. We got 22, we got drop-ins, I got CO2, so I got like MO99 and 448 and 507C. They're all in there. It's just a whole hodgepodge of whatever somebody put in when the coil broke or they lost the charge or whatever.
Yeah, you'll see that with different contractors. Some of them prefer, you know, 422B or 407C, and they got their own little blends that they like to run in-house in their company. It just
Yeah.
depends on what they were trained with, or a lot of times I find out if companies they'll go to some training event at their local supply house and then they're sold on that one specific blend without really trying anything else. So I find that a lot of retrofits, and you'll see them where they're, they just went to this because that's what they learned at a supply house event. And it's good sometimes, it's important that some people get knowledge before they just start dropping things in. But I've seen my fair share of systems with 407C in them, and no oil changes, nothing, and then 6 months later they got a bad compressor and everything, and they're different issues that you run into.
Yeah, you got to know what procedures you got to go through on all of them and monitor them a little closer. It's not really a set and forget.
Yeah, yeah, especially with a lot of the larger systems, performance really varies, and then you kind of got to play with TXVs. You got to play with a lot of the components that they have. I mean, it depends on what they're doing. I found that a lot of the issues with older systems, if they have a lot of the accumulators get plugged up and everything on those little screens on the bottom, and nobody's addressed it, little things like that. And once we start going in with POE oil and everything, and all the garbage that's inside those line sets gets cleaned out, and the next thing we know, we got plug screens, plug strainers, all sorts of different things inside the refrigerant circuit. And I got a lot of older systems that still run screens on their systems, and those screens plug up pretty quickly.
Yeah, a lot if it's got a
Yeah.
common oil system like a rack too. I've seen a lot where like the oil receiver floats and stuff like that'll just gum up terrible when you swap them over.
Yeah, I've also noticed that not a lot of the new things I've been doing is, obviously with 448A, kind of coming out. We've been converting a lot of walk-ins over that have had issues and everything to 448A. Not having the old R22 systems, and we've had pretty good success with that.
Fun.
Our ambient temperatures don't like that. You got to set those low pressure controls so low on those things. When you start hitting minus 40, they do not like to build pressure.
We got 80 degrees this week, so
I'm looking forward to that come August.
it's a little bit different.
Yeah. All right. So, anybody doing the R290 propane yet? Has anyone touched that?
I've done a little bit on undercounters in some of the restaurant contracts I had in my last company and stuff like that. Nothing too major. It does seem to do a lot better with bad condensers and coils and stuff like that than stuff like the old stuff did where the oils would break down and plug cap tubes and stuff. But charging
Yeah, I
is a bit of a
noticed.
pain.
It's a process.
Just the way the bottles sit. Although at AHR, there was a couple companies that are building smart scales that the bottle actually screws into. So you can
So it
actually
doesn't
put your
tip
charge
over.
level in. Yeah, rather than like shoving it in a Coke bottle or something like that.
Yeah, I heard there was something about having an issue with the bottle staying upright or something. I haven't dived into the R290 yet, so I ran into them here and there, but nothing crazy. I've heard some of the procedures on them, but I heard that was one of the complaints, the bottles itself or what have you. So yeah, I
I don't
have
know what
yet
your guys
to.
are. Yeah, I don't know what your guys' are like, but ours come in a fairly big aerosol can, like twice the size of a whipped cream container.
Hmm.
And it's a vapor takeoff. So you actually have to invert the can upside down.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
where that scale comes in, is you screw it in and then you can set your charge and it'll actually like open a solenoid and feed it in.
Yeah, I think it's like the Master Cool kit or something. It's just a little upside down port
That's
on top of that scale, and you just thread it in. Like you said, it looks like a whipped cream can and stuff. You just thread it in, and then it goes off from there. I've ran into, I think, what is it, True refrigerators? A lot of those reach-ins have the R290s. I ran into them. A couple little leaks here and there. So that's about it.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't dived into it yet, so till I do it, I'll let you guys know if I survive.
Won't be that
Yeah,
bad with the A2Ls and 3Ls coming. Everybody's gonna have best practices.
Yeah, hopefully, actually be pretty cool. We can get some little training on that. It'd be pretty good. I heard that there's a certification online for it too. It's pretty easy. They said somebody was telling me. I forgot what link it was, but they said, "Oh, it's fairly easy. It's like 20 minutes. You get certified, or educated on it." So,
yeah. There's a few companies already kind of coming out with some information on that stuff, and then R290s had certifications online for it for a while now. And they're pretty easy to kind of get and everything. And they send you a link to print out your little like card that says you're certified to work with it or something. And it's a safety course really.
right, yeah.
So
Yeah, some guy was like, "Oh, you just got to have common sense." So I have that, but I don't know
and
about putting a flame to some R290 though. Not sure how that would go. Or
You'll know you made the
and
mistake
they're like, "You
fast.
got to." Yeah, you're like, "Just be quick." I mean, I don't know about that. How quick can you be?
Well, the other argument that a couple of my buddies made, that we were talking about it, it's a lot of it's best practices stuff we're supposed to be doing anyways. They're talking big things are like nitrogen purging when you braise and stuff like that, and it's what we should be doing most of the time. And it's just guys got to practice of it, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
practice
yeah,
makes
I gotta.
perfect for sure.
That's kind of interesting you say that because I was this week I was had to repair two little leaks on a York Premier system. It's like a 40-ton package unit. Kind of looks like York's version of an IntelliPack. And circuit 2 has two compressors on it, and there was two little leaks on the factory welds right on the one of the service ports, right where they welded it right into the suction line, and then right on the compressor they had a little porous weld, and this unit was already, I don't know, 2 years old now. And it's funny because I recovered, it wasn't a big charge, it was only like 30 pounds in the system for that circuit, but just because the colder temps that morning, I just had to leave the recovery machine on it for a while, and I decided to go take a break and everything, just because every time I looked at the pressure shut off the recovery machine, pressure would come back up and everything. It's just kind of, the oil was still kind of boiling off. You could look in the sight glass on those big scroll compressors. The Copelands have the sight glass on the bottom, and I left the recovery machine on the unit, and I just came back from a break, and it was down to 900 microns, and I was kind of surprised that first time I got my recovery machine down that low on a system like that. And I was thinking to myself, boy, this is the first time I've pulled a vacuum with a recovery machine. I've never been this desperate. But yeah, even after that and everything, I let it sit for a minute, and sure enough, there was a little bit of vapor still kind of coming off on the system and everything. Obviously, different valves, just depending on what, if you got reheat coils or anything, and those reheat coils are shut, the valves are going to bleed, and you're still going to have refrigerant trapped in there. So I had to purge with nitrogen just so that it's, when you're, especially where that service port's at, and everything, you're doing a weld there, you get that little bit of vapor and you're heating it up around there, and you're getting hit by that gas right there. It's still in there. Be pretty quick.
Yeah.
So,
Which recovery pump was that you got that big a vacuum on?
It was a JB. It's
Ah,
that big square one. I forget what the name is. I could probably find out, but um, I got the JB, and I have the field piece, and it's been pretty nice because obviously with bigger systems, you kind of need a couple recovery machines. But I was noticing that the uh, the JB and the field piece already say on there that they're certified for A2L refrigerants. So I was kind of surprised that I never really noticed it before. They're newer machines, but I was thinking to myself, well, I'm already ahead of the game. I already got tools that are certified for it. It was the JBF6. That's which one it was.
Yeah, I know the Appion stuff's all A2L ready to go.
Yeah, Appion, I think JB and Field Piece, they're already ready to go, which makes it nice if you have a newer recovery machine, you're ready. There's not much tooling difference that you're really going to need, other than maybe recovery, vacuum pumps that are certified for it. And even then, most of the new vacuum pumps already are.
Most of the guys I talked to
that's
basically said 2010 up is pretty much when they started to just build everything into them already because they knew it was coming.
And I figured they probably were going to be on that to begin with, since they were already doing R290, R600, a couple of the other flammables. So with vacuum pumps, they had already started doing that quite a while ago.
nice.
It's funny, when I was walking around AHR, everybody is now stamping A2L on everything, like gauge manifolds, Schrader pullers, screwdrivers, because everybody's just asking for it. They're just going to start putting it on there as part of the branding.
There you go. You
So
can have A2L certified screwdrivers.
is this A2L certified?
It's
Hopefully it
funny because it
is.
kind of reminds me of having to work on systems around MRI rooms where they got all the specialty tools, crescent wrenches, screwdrivers that are all non-ferrous, and
Yeah.
just so you don't get a tool that goes sucked through a wall right into the MRI room.
Don't wear your jewelry that day for sure. So what's your so you said JB and Phil Piece, what are your go-to tools? Are you a Milwaukee, rigid, DeWalt kind of guy? What do you guys roll with? Any pack outs?
I bleed red because they have everything. It's hard not to it nowadays. I was when I got into the trade, it was Makita. Now it's Milwaukee, just because you can buy everything you ever need.
Mm-hmm.
My leaf blower, my jacket, my hedge trimmer.
Yeah, it's funny you
Nice.
say that. I remember my first impact that I ended up buying with my own money was a Makita, and then shortly after that, after a couple of years and everything, Milwaukee started coming out with everything, and now I got all the latest tools. I got all the flashlights. I got all the Milwaukee gear. I got a pack out set that I use as a go pack for like different setups. You got to have your different drawers set up for one for recovery, one for leak detection and everything. I got all my stuff in there. I got one with all my manifolds and everything to check gas pressures, and I got the big pack out case that fits all my tools inside their cases. So I got you got to have your combustion analyzers all set up in there in their nice little foam cases and everything inside the pack out. So you're all ready to go. You can just roll up on the job and you can whip those out.
Yeah, my last company, we built a lot of walk-ins from scratch and stuff, and we had probably 6 of the drawer pack outs on dollies, and we could just roll in, and that had every fitting organized. We knew which drawer they were in. All the electrics were organized, labeled. But you could just roll in there and go.
It makes it a lot
That's
easier.
sweet. Oh yeah. Makes the job a lot easy. Yeah.
I mean, even for the home side of things, let's be honest here. You got to have the leaf blower. You got to have the little cordless vacuum for the shop. I even got the little cordless saw for it and everything that runs off M12, and I got the M18. So, I got to run those, and I got those set up on the little track saw setup. I forget which one it is, but there's another company that makes a setup for it that you can clamp onto your saw. So whenever I got to cut some big sheets and everything, I could just run it across there and make a perfect cut every time.
I'm not even gonna lie. I got extra brownie points for buying the wife the sweater with the heated pocket so she can keep her hands warm. And when the Dyson vacuum died, I went and bought the adapter so I could run my M18s on the Dyson. And
Nice.
I think that's probably the only line I have like any brand loyalty to. Gauges, I got yellow and testo, and pumps. I've ran most of them, and yeah, it's just something about the cordless. That's where I go.
Yeah, I generally stick to Milwaukee for my power tools. I got a combustion analyzer that's a testo. I got a backup set of gauges that are testos, and then I carry my main set of gauges that are field piece. I got both, and then I have the wireless probes that are testos. I don't use the field piece ones. It's just been preference, and then cost. Yeah, and so far I've had pretty good luck with a lot of the field piece stuff. And then since we're in Anaheim, we're pretty close. We can go stop by there anytime to warranty some of that stuff. So that's been pretty easy for us. And I obviously gotta have the fluke meter. That's kind of a given. Got the fluke temp gun, got the meter. Um,
I guess I got all my meters. I have like 5 flukes, so yeah, I'm 100% with you on that one, and my Magger.
yeah. So yeah, and the Megger is
All
pretty
day.
pretty important to get a fluke and everything. Just something that I bought one fluke meter and I haven't replaced it yet, and I've had it for about 8 years now. Previous to that, I had field piece and everything, and it's been pretty good. You get the same problems you're gonna get with every meter. Your leads are gonna wear out, they're gonna break, you're gonna yank on them. I've been sitting there working on top of a package unit, not paying attention, set my meter and leads down, and the leads go fall through the fan motor, and they get chopped up, and I'm looking at them just dropping at the bottom of there, and I'm like, well, gotta get new leads.
Yeah, the fluke is the way to go. I got the flukes, the field pieces, Milwaukee power tools. I do have the Milwaukee vacuum pump, battery operated, which is really nice. You can
How
do
do
the
you
fat
find that? I've heard
hoses.
rumors it doesn't pull so deep.
I haven't had issues with it yet. Granted, I've only used it, a handful of times. Both ways, you can use it through the fat hoses, or you can use your manifold. The manifold, what it does is it goes into a low setting, and it'll run for about 90 minutes battery life. So you pretty much get your vacuum out of that. And then with the fat hoses, I was on that mode. I think it was like 30 minutes or so, and it was already at 500 microns or less. So you're talking about maybe a 5-ton package unit, or if you're doing a refrigeration type condenser, stuff like that, it runs pretty good. So I haven't had any issues with it. I have yet to find out what the flaws are, but for the most part, it's been pretty good to me. I can't complain. And of course, I run with the flukes meters, so that's my go-to. I have 2 of them as well, so they've been pretty good to me. That's about it on the tool side, and then I'm got all my nice tools in the Vito tool bags as well, rocking the MB, the Tech MC, and the TPX XL OG. It's not the blackout, but it's got all my nice little Weehaws and Kleins in there, insulated tools. So
I'm
yeah,
still running the Tech Back backpack from the first year it came out.
hey,
It
I wanted
it
to
is
get
on
that
its
so
last
bad.
year for about the last 2 years. So
Yeah, they got
Yeah,
a
I've had
bunch of them now. Milwaukee's making them. Who else? I think even Field Piece might be making one. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. But I've seen them coming out with the backpacks for sure.
yeah,
yeah,
they've been pretty good.
Vito's got a new one I just saw that's a backpack with like roller wheels on it, like carry-on luggage.
Oh, the tech pack.
Yeah, the Tech Pack with Tech Pack wheels, I think it's called. I think that's going to be the next one.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just backpack with a little rolly case on the bottom section, big plastic bit and everything. That's kind of pretty good for some of the heavier tools. And it would probably be a pretty nice like commissioning backpack if you have to run a laptop for any controls or anything like that. You got to have all your paperwork when you're coming in doing commissioning stuff. I know we've had to do some work for some commissioning equipment for some cannabis facilities, and got to roll in there with the backpack, all the paperwork, got to be ready to fill it all out, be able to connect to it. And then especially with like Mitsubishi, we got to run all that trend data on their maintenance tool, log all that data, and then be able to send it off to the factory rep so that they can give us that extended warranty. So uh, depends on what you're doing. You need to have some paperwork. You gotta have that laptop. That Rolly backpack's not too bad. I used to have the CPS backpacks, or no, sorry, it was the CLC backpack. CLC used to have a backpack that was pretty good. Had a little flashlight integrated with it, and a little power pack pouch inside there. Came with the battery charger and everything. So
Oh, I think I remember those ones. Yeah, the flashlight was sort of like a floodlight in the front.
yeah, they had one like that, and they had a little swivel light that kind of had a little arm that came off the side of it. So you would just kind of pop that out, and you can kind of point it in a direction. It was kind of funny because on a normal package unit it wasn't very useful, but on a reach in, you could set your backpack down and it'll actually be pointing right at the equipment that you're trying to look at. But I was trying to figure out how to use that for my setup. But I liked it. It had when I was using it, it had that little portable battery pouch on there, and I would, you're on the go. Sometimes you're on a roof all day, and your phone starts dying and everything, and you get your headphones in and you're listening to a podcast. You're not gonna sit there and go run to the van and everything. If you have the battery pack, you can actually go down there and just pull it out real quick and plug in your phone and start charging away and continue your day. That was pretty handy for me, especially since working on a lot of 460-volt units. There wasn't anywhere I could hook up my Widowmaker. There was no plugs, and of course it's an old building. There's no electrical plugs on the whole roof, so you're kind of stuck with what you got. So if you got to charge your phone, you got to go back down to the van and start it up.
You just need to get that M12 adapter, then you're good. One more Milwaukee tool you don't have.
There you go. That's the next step. I don't have the adapter for the plug or the USB, but I haven't needed it yet. So right now I seem to have a little battery backup pouch and everything, so I've been okay in there. That's the only tool I don't really have right now, but probably on the next list. With Milwaukee, that's how it tends to go. There's a new tool out there, you got to get it for no reason.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. I have it, and it's just been sitting in my van, still in the package for I think almost 2 months. I'm like, I'm gonna use it one day. Haven't used it.
I have the one that it goes on the M12 battery, but it's for your heated sweater or jacket, but it also has the USB plug on it.
Yeah, those are pretty nice.
I have probably walked down to the truck to charge something while having it on me because I forgot about it, but
It's nice to have.
Charging
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, those have been pretty good. One of the other things too, and you guys are talking about hand tools and all that stuff. I've actually liked the Klein has a set of reversible insulated screwdrivers. Comes in a little pouch and everything, and I found those have been pretty good as far as it goes. I know their 11-in-1's been pretty handy. They got a couple of hand tools that I like to use as far as vice grips and that sense goes. I've been using mainly only Knipex. Those have been my choice on that front. And then they've pipe wrenches go. You got to have the big rigid pipe wrench, but Milwaukee's got their version of it that's got the cheater on there, and you can swap out the 3/4 inch. And I have that one in there because obviously it's a given. It's a Milwaukee. I had to buy it, so.
I can't remember the brand off the top of my head, but my adjustable wrenches that I carry, they got the flippable head, so you can turn them into a pseudo pipe wrench. They're not the greatest, but as far as a quick service bag, they come in pretty handy.
Yeah, I got a couple of those. They're the Harbor Freight specials.
No, these are bugger expensive, and you got to buy them from Carrier up here. It's the only place to get them. But
okay, well, we get some of those just at
even the 6-inch is like $80.
No Harbor Freight? We're in Canada? What?
Our Harbor Freight's called Princess Auto, and it probably comes out of the same factory.
Oh.
It probably does.
It's the type of breaker bar you can bend into a C.
It's like when you find out that some of the Matco gear's just rebranded Harbor Freight.
Hey, Matco's good.
It's been it. But got to have a couple of those big wrenches. I got one of those big the rigid aluminum pipe wrenches, the big jaw ones and everything. Every now and then you got some stupid condenser water strainer that's just stuck, and you're just sitting there, two guys hanging off of one big pipe wrench to try to get this thing loose, and all of a sudden the pipe starts moving and the thing hasn't broken free yet, and you're like, oh boy, this is gonna be a long day. And you got to this got a plugged up strainer, and there's no other way to do it than clear that thing out.
Yeah, I got two 36-inch aluminum rigid pipe wrenches that back when I was an apprentice, I handed my journeyman my credit card because I needed to buy a pipe wrench and said, yeah, grab me two of those aluminum ones like you got and put it on this. And when he came back and I saw the bill, I'm like, I made a big mistake.
Yeah, the
Like
price.
$300 worth of pipe wrenches. Whoopsies.
Yeah, mine
Yeah, I
are
know.
the Harbor Freight specials. That's for sure.
Those work pretty good too, though.
They work. Yeah.
For how much I paid my 36 rigids, probably should have bought Harbor Freight.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't hate.
They even got those big crescent wrenches that Harbor Freight too, the really big ones. Those have worked pretty good. I picked one of those up and it's worked. It's about the same as my crescent wrench. I have both the Crescent and the Harbor Freight brand. I gotta carry a set of two just because whenever I'm looking for it, for some weird reason, it's just disappeared.
I'll spend a little less on that stuff that you rarely pull out of the truck to make sure I have it. Get the 90% tool, but the stuff you use all the time, I usually spend the money on.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like your gauges, service port, or your probes, fill piece. Always do the 4 ports.
I'm just starting to look into the field piece. I don't know why one of my first journeymen had a hard on that he didn't like JB and he didn't like field piece. Just felt that they were like an entry level cheap tool, and I got that in my head throughout my apprenticeship and never really looked at them.
Mm-hmm.
And then start talking to guys, especially with the digitals and field pieces. A lot of guys are really, really happy with them. And I know just comparing my Testo to guys' field pieces, like the Bluetooth ranges and stuff, is way better on the field piece stuff.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I've had no issues from it. They have a set of meters. It's funny because I'm looking at my desk and I got the meter on my desk. This is actually one that my dad gave me. He actually got it when they first came out. It's the SC66. It's the older field piece meter. They discontinued the SC66 a while ago.
Oh yeah,
But,
with the voltage pin and everything, yeah.
Yeah, and he ended up giving that to me, and he bought this when it first came out, and it's probably, who knows, maybe 20 some years old now or something, or whenever this came out. I'm not really sure exactly, but yeah, it I don't know how old the field piece is and everything, but I remember when he first got it, he was doing plumbing and air conditioning with the company. He's got a plumbing company right now, but back when I was a kid, he was using this not too long ago, and I remember he showed me it when he first got it. He's like, "Oh, check it out! This new company came out, and it's at the warehouse. They were having I guess they were probably having some sort of counter day or something, and that's what Field Piece was first trying to get into the market. And I still have it today. I use it every now and then around the house and everything. He just gave it to me and handed it to me, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll take it. And so that's my house meter, is the Field Piece SC66.
It's a nice hand-me-down right there. Still going.
Still works.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, my dad's hand-me-downs are way older than that, so.
No, he still got some of those. He's still got some of those analog meters where you got the whole readout there, and you got to check and change all the plugs depending on what voltage. If you're doing ohms, different things like that, you got to switch all the plugs. And he's got a few of them that are quite a bit older and everything, but he's still kept onto those.
Yeah, my dad was an electrician since like the 60s and was did it over in the UK before he came over. So I've got like his original multimeter that cost him 2 weeks' wages, and it's in a leather folding case and Bakelite plastic and the whole deal. Crank up megger and
Yeah, there's some older tools out there that were pretty specialty back in the day. Back when people were just touching the wires, they're like, yeah, that's 115. We're good.
He told me stories of guys putting fingers in the light sockets to look for 200.
Yeah. Yeah.
Callous fingers, guys didn't care.
I've worked with some electricians that would do that and everything. I saw one just touch a 480 volt panel. He touches one leg of it. I'm like, what the heck are you doing?
Thanks, but no thanks.
The old school tactics, right? The tricks of the trade.
Oh yeah, there's some there's some old school guys out there that can feel what's going on with the system. You know, they're touching, like you said, he's feeling the voltage. Oh yeah, it's 230 volt. We're good.
Yeah, they're also the ones giving all the safety crews just a heart attack every time they walk on site.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same ones. They're the guys that are still going off a beer can cold.
Yeah, they're still around, still kicking. So, um, other than that, lately, what have you guys been doing? Any major repairs, or I've just been on PMs, man. Little repairs here and there, just condensing fan motors, working on under counter refrigeration and some reach ins. A lot of uh, reach in freezers and coolers. Ran into this, I don't know, it was like a knockoff true reach in freezer, a Tosa. Never heard of it. Anyone? Yeah.
No,
Yeah, a Tosa.
is
So,
the refrigerant charge in ounces?
yes.
It's usually
Yes.
when I know it's a problem.
Yeah. The controller on that was bad. I had to bypass it and it runs, but just trying to get the controller and dial it in. So fun times. A couple displays. But yeah, nothing crazy for me. I see you guys are all on the big stuff over there having fun.
Yeah, we'll go with fun.
Making all that big money.
I honestly have one site. It's a meat packing plant. It is I think they built it in the 60s. It's a World War II munitions storage building used to be on the edge of town. Now it's in the center of town. And I've been 2-3 weeks dead straight on that. 8 pieces of equipment ranging from a 6-cylinder Mycom open drive all the way up to a brand new CO2 rack.
Oh wow.
So
Busting in some new stuff, or you guys installed it, or you guys are just
yeah, we
working
installed
on
it. We're right at the end of the warranty term, so we're just doing all the final check sheets to be able to hand it over to the customer fully. I don't know, what was the last one I did? I had an oil level control in the comp fail.
it?
And when they built it, if they would have cast the body a half an inch wider from the valve, you'd actually be able to get wrenches on things. But you have to put the bolts through like oblong holes that they've made into it because it's got to go into an angle because the clearances are so tight. And
Wow.
All the fun stuff
Yeah.
you get to deal with.
oh yeah, and it doesn't have an accessory unit, so it's got to have compressors kick on to keep the flash tank low. So it's the main compressor I'm working on. So it's got the secondary's got to fire up. So I'm tucked in there. I got a compressor right against my head here, and then it starts and scares the crap out of me. And work for 20 minutes. It does it again, and
Yeah, yeah, that's the fun things. That hasn't been too busy over here. We've been having a couple repairs here and there. I got a carrier chiller, little screw chiller water cool, and I got to do an oil filter replacement on that. The oil filter's due for replacement, and right where the oil filter, it's one of those ones that kind of like that looks kind of like a chatlet fitting for the oil
Mhm.
filter. And right where the oil filter's at, the copper line that's running right up against it is chafing. So I'm looking at it, it's just bubbling up and just dripping oil right off of it. And so the customer finally approved it after 6 months ago, telling them. So now we got to figure out how much oil lower, how much lower the oil is, how much refrigerant we lost, all that stuff. So finally going to do the repair on that, and just been taking advantage of the weather. So I mean, we've had a couple little calls here and there and stuff like that. Some bigger package units and everything. Obviously, doing VAVs that do uh, multiple rooms, different things like that. One, you know how it always goes. There's always one person that's hot, one person that's cold, and you know that they're always the person that's always cold gets the coldest room, and the person that's always hot's in the hottest room. So kind of that kind of stuff, and then a lot of updates on our equipment. So just doing updates on the controllers, doing updates on the building automation systems. I got a building that's got a bunch of York package units on there, and so they all have the simplicity controllers. Got to do updates on those to kind of get rid of a lot of the bugs that they kind of get, and those are all tied in and on the Verisys system from JCI. So a lot of the simplicity controllers, the older software kind of tends to have glitches and issues if they have power cycle it'll reset and lose all the data. And there we go. Customer calls us, hey, one of our units is this no name, it's blank, and it's not connecting. And it's like, oh, all right, well, we'll be over there. That's the time we go take care of doing updates, check their smart building hub, make sure it's all updated and it's the latest software, and then go update all the controllers that need it and kind of go down that route. So it's been pretty good for light building automation work, just little updates and just double checking things and things on that route. But as far as repairs, nothing major. I mean, it's starting to warm up now this week for us at least. So which means that there's really no heat calls going in, and the no cooling calls, people are just opening the windows instead. So, but big offices kind of don't have that option, so it's kind of nice on that end.
Yeah, it's been mellow on my side too, so um, nothing really crazy over here. I'm sure once we get the weather coming back, it's gonna pick up here soon. So we're trying to get all the PMs out of the way. Hopefully, by then everything will be dialed in, and we'll see where it goes from there. It's been pretty warm this week. I think it's going to cool down next week. We're going to drop back down into the 60s and 50s, so high 50s, nothing crazy. So we had a little bit of weather last week, some rain, um, but not much out here in the valley. It's always out toward the city area, so the mountains usually soak that up.
So your big shutdowns and stuff for maintenance, what you guys have like a fairly decent winter season to get through them, or are you guys still needing to provide that cooling during most of the season?
I mean, for 2 months, we could probably do a shutdown if it came down to cooling. It just depends. Like if it's hotel rooms, probably not. Most of our, anything in the hospitality industry, most of the individuals that come and visit this location are from out of town and they're usually up north. So, they like to come to a place that's nice and sunny year round, when their place is gloomy and cold and freezing. And so they're coming out here and they're like, wow, it's 70 degrees. This is amazing. And they get to their hotel room and slam the temperature probe, right, they just hit the temperature gauge there on the thermostat as far low as they can. And so, as it goes, it just, hey, if it's 65 degrees on that thermostat, let's just slam it to the bottom. It's going to blow colder, right?
Yep.
And yeah,
That's
and
how the world
so
works.
that goes. So, I mean, it's okay because we do have a couple little hotels and everything that do have backups. A lot of them out here run PTAX, and there's a few of them that run Mitsubishi VRF. So with those ones, it's kind of difficult because we'll have 2 or 3 rooms, 4 rooms, 5 rooms, all on one condenser. So if we got to do a shutdown, we're taking down a block. Or if they got a chiller, um, it's dependent on how it was built. Sometimes we have some places that have 2 chillers and they got built-in redundancy. And then most hotels, no built-in redundancy. So, I've ran into places where they got still open sump coolers running these chillers. They upgraded the chiller probably 10 years ago and stuff, kept the same open sump cooling tower in there that's just sucking in garbage. And so I'm like telling them, hey, we got to shut this thing down and, clean it out. Everything's all just sucking in garbage. And they're like, we can't. And it's like, well, we got to figure something out. It's kind of difficult just because it's not as cold here. So cooling doesn't really get a major shutdown. Offices usually do. If we have a large, like a lot of the Trina Telepacks, a lot of the York Premiers, we're gonna be setting those up to be running off the economizer. So any of my stuff that's running on a building automation system out here is actually got it programmed to actually run an economizer pretty well. So we can take advantage of that, especially in the mornings. 50-degree air, 40-degree air coming in. Um, it's pretty nice. Most of the time, anyways, most of the offices are trying to heat it anyways. Just kind of depends. Early in the morning, so. But once the afternoon sun's kind of straight up over the top, it heats up quite a bit out here, and that's when we kind of notice a lot of the issues with no cooling, and we'll still get them in the winter. They still happen. It's a dry environment out here. Our winters get pretty dry, so people feel the temperature change very rapidly.
And you're constantly doing that, and you're dealing with that in the growing industry too, right? You're just nonstop over there, right? With the
We were pretty heavy on cannabis.
dehumidifiers and all that.
Yeah, we did a lot of cannabis builds. and a lot of cannabis cultivation maintenance. So we were dealing with a lot of facilities, taking care of them, doing a lot of work on their stuff. We've kind of cut back and scaled back on the cannabis cultivation side of things just because the market's changed drastically out here. So one of the big things that it really kind of comes down to it is, can they pay? And that's the big deal.
Mm,
So it's not that the work doesn't exist, it's plenty of it. It's just,
mhm.
can they pay? Or are they going to stay up with it? And that's going to be the biggest deal with cannabis cultivation in our specific region in SoCal. So I mean, you could throw a stick up in certain areas of certain cities. You throw a stick up in the air, and it's probably going to land on a cannabis site. So it just depends on where it's at. And those are going to be running pretty, unique challenges, especially with some of our sites. We have um, some engineers in their infinite wisdom decided that a location that gets 120 degrees needs to run a greenhouse. Um, I'm not an engineer, I'm not the smartest guy, but I can tell you right now, when it's 120 degrees out here, the greenhouse doesn't work very well. And it gets pretty warm inside there, a little bit more so than they need to. But I got some sites that have big common area grow facilities where they decided to do pretty massive setups. I got one facility that's running 11 35-ton SA35 Aeons for one room. And obviously they put all their eggs in one basket in one room and basically decided to grow, big scale on one thing and then do a couple of little small nurseries around it and trim rooms and stuff. So they got a couple of cooling towers to run the whole facility. They have a building automation system set up to manage the growing operations on into the environmental side. So the environmentals we're maintaining, building pressure. So we're exhausting or we're pressurizing the building to kind of keep it set up the way we want it to. And part of the exhaust system, it's tied into our CO2 safety and life support system. That's part of the BAS. So we have to do some custom controls for those kinds of setups because they'll run 1500 ppm of CO2 in a room. Not very good for a normal office. You're going to have people with headaches and very tired all the time, but for some reason plants love it. So it's a different setup. And then at 5000 ppm, we're exhausting the building and turning on strobe lights, from our building automation system to let people know, hey, it's too high of a concentration, get out of there. We're managing humidity, so we do humidity injection. So we have like Condair humidifiers that inject humidity into the rooms, or they'll use like a cool fog system, which just basically is a very large misting system for the building to humidify. Or to dehumidify, the systems have full reheat capability. Like on the SA35s from Aeon, we custom order those with through some cannabis companies that deal with Aeon directly as a vendor and order the equipment package based off of what we need. So we'll have reheat, cooling, humidity, dehumidification capability, and CO2 injection and removal on our package. So when that's all done, we kind of set up the whole control. The big deal is not setting up the equipment. The big deal is maintaining the equipment because after a year, that's where kind of things drop off. It could be really great, customers really happy, when everything's under warranty. And then once it's out of warranty and they stop paying for maintenance, they stopped doing everything that they should have been doing. They said, well, we hired in-house facility guys. We can take care of our own stuff. And they're in-house facility guys not changing the filters and they're not cleaning out condenser water strainers. They're not doing all the checks and they're cutting things and then they call us back and then they're, upset and angry with the overall product and it's nothing to do with us. They've been given something, it's been commissioned, it's gone through a warranty period with no issues. They've seen the effects of what happens when you take care of something, and then we kind of let them know, hey, if you want to maintain an actual warranty with us, you have to have it maintained, especially with equipment like that. So you have to go into a maintenance contract on that. We'll give you the first visit free, but then we recommend that you do quarterly. So then, they give them pay for 3 visits and everything and come in after that. And yeah, it works great. And then they deviate from all of that. And then they call 6 months later after it's out of warranty and they're saying, well, the equipment's not working. We've lost compressors. We've lost this. And you go in there and you find out their in-house maintenance guys wire nutting all the high pressure discharge switches and
Oh,
finding, condenser water strainers are plugged. And you're like, Okay, well, we can't do anything about the closed loop. I mean, that was all flushed and everything as good as it can from new construction, but we looked at it, nothing has been recharged as far as it goes for chemical treatment. Nothing's been done on that end. Your cooling tower is completely untaken care of. Where's the water treatment company? Where's the records for maintenance? Where's this? And it's like immediately it's going falling on deaf ears. It's your product is terrible. You guys don't know what you're doing. Ever since you guys left, everything's fallen apart. Wait, hold on. It's fallen apart once we left. It worked great when everybody was doing what they should have been doing. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those classic cases. If you don't do maintenance, the equipment's going to schedule it for you. And so we kind of find that we have a couple of facilities that do have um, a decent maintenance setup, and the guys that don't have the maintenance setup, they've decided to just rely on repairs. They say, well, we're going to pay you in maintenance or we're going to pay you in repairs, so we'll just wait till it breaks. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. You got 5-year-old equipment now that's completely trashed, in horrible shape and blowing mold all over your products. So tell me where that's going for you.
I always tell them it's
All that.
20% more when you put it behind. 20% more a year.
Yeah.
You fall
Yeah.
5 years behind your maintenance, that's going to be 100% more than it cost before. That's exactly the facility I'm working at right now. It's old equipment that wasn't maintained very well, and they're shocked that they're having failure after failure after failure.
Yeah.
I
No,
got a call a
sometimes
couple hours ago that one of the coils out there, it's well, good.
no. Yeah, that's how it goes. Waiting for the
Maybe
connection,
lost
huh?
it. Yeah. No, that's they don't want to spend enough money on that, and then the equipment goes wayside, right?
Well, everything kind of degrades, right? So it's one thing if you're taking care of it. Oh, we got you back.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm just saying that the coil had been scheduled to be changed for over a year. They were pushing it back to see how long they could get it. And now custom ordered coil has failed, and they're going to lose their entire freezer in the next 48 hours
Jeez.
because they lost a third of their cooling capacity.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not nothing you can do,
Nope.
right? And I find that customers try to tend to put that anxiety and that stress on you, and they've made the bad decisions, but they put it on you like it's your fault. You're owning the equipment. You guys touched it, you own it, and so
The
we
hard
get
part
that a
is when
lot.
there's a maintenance department in the middle, or particularly a maintenance manager, because they've been able to push that back to make their budget look good. And now all of a sudden they have a massive failure. So the first thing they want to do is blame us as the contracting company. And I've learned over
Another freeze up.
Yeah. Oh, we've been in those same situations. We've had customers defer maintenance.
Hmm.
back
We
again.
lost you. We lost you on that maintenance part. You're talking about the customer.
Oh, just that the maintenance departments will put back the maintenances, they'll do everything, and then they'll try and blame the contractor to their superiors as to why this very expensive equipment is failing. They've
Yeah.
delayed their maintenance to make budget. Now they're confused why they have this massive coil. So I learned years ago that I tend to do most of my communication and important by text messages or emails because I can always refer back.
Hmm.
Yeah, the emails have been the biggest thing. So a lot of those sites that are like that, we do company-wide emails. So we include, service manager, technician, and our customer service department all in on the email.
Mhm.
And then we don't just include the maintenance team. We find out who's paying the bills and who's in charge of overall the facility, and we tie in at least 3 people in on their end so that they can all see it. And then when the maintenance department heads usually try to put it on us because they've deferred something, then we can refer to those emails, same as you guys, and just say, well, hold on, we got all the same emails, and then kind of bring the individual who's over in charge of everything back to the fact that, hey, we were ahead of this. We were
Yeah.
telling you this was going to happen. Um,
Hmm.
and this is now the results of the deferred service. And
We
so
also
then,
get them to reply to emails if there's somebody. So for today's example, they decided that they just want to isolate that coil and rely on the other 2 coils that are there, which is not going to be enough to bring that product down. It may maintain the room. And I said to my on-call guy, I'm like, write up an email, send it to this address, which is the maintenance guy who told you to just isolate the system and leave it, and tell him he has to reply to that email. Because as soon as he replies back, it means he saw it. Whether he read it or not, he saw it.
Yeah, and it also kind of puts a paper trail on those approvals. We've had a lot of issues on verbal approvals. And I can write on my notes, hey, I got a verbal approval from the maintenance manager. And they said, well, that's hearsay. We don't really know if I don't remember ever giving you guys a verbal approval.
Yeah, or you said it was only going to be a couple $1,000 and now it's $20,000. Right? Yeah, we went through the same site. We went through all of this last year.
Yeah, yeah. And I got a site right now that's that when we hit the coldest that we've had, about a month ago or so, we had some cold spells. They started to get, it was a cannabis facility, started to get too cold inside the facility. They were blaming us for their crops being ruined, blah, blah, blah. They want to have somebody to pay for all of their loss.
Mm.
And, they're trying to ask questions. Well, why isn't this taken care of? Why isn't that taken care of? We had a bunch of reheat coils on these SA35 Aeons. They're just capped off because the reheat coils have leaked. So because middle of summer, they're people that are making the decisions. We're telling them, hey, we can get you going right now. We can cap off the reheat coil, recharge the system, get you running. You'll have cooling, but you're not going to have amazing reheating capabilities. You're not going to have amazing dehumidification capabilities, unless the unit's running at 100%, you need 100% cooling. And then here comes winter, and they're just running in dehumidification, and the rooms are getting way too cold because the units are just pumping in cold air and they're not reheating. And they're looking back and saying, well, why was this never fixed? And we said, you guys never approved the full repairs. You said it was easier and cheaper to do the reheat coil repairs. We gave you both options. We told you this is only temporary, but in the winter, this is going to be an issue. And you guys said, oh, it doesn't get cold enough here for that. And then now we're having the same issue. And they said, well, we're just going to have to figure something out and do this, do that. And of course, they waited out. Now that the cold spells are gone and it's heating up again, this will probably be an issue for next year.
Are you having many problems with insurance claims against losses and stuff? That's starting to start up where I am, where now the insurance companies are asking for maintenance records, including any recommendations from the service provider to pay out a claim.
Not too often. We've had one facility that did that, and their insurance department was going round and round in circles with us. Granted, we couldn't give them full information because the site had not used us in over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And when they started using us again, they had used us again to replace a couple of compressors. And then all of a sudden, we're getting hit with this information. Hey, we need you guys to fill out this information and everything. We're trying to process it through a warranty company so we can get paid out on this. And we're like, well, what's going on? And they deferred maintenance. They stopped using us for a year. They went with somebody that was cheaper. Started messing around with TXV adjustments, electronic expansion valves, right? So they started going in on these like Danfoss controllers and going in and entering all the different adjustments. They got units that are low, and instead of adding charge, they're over there. Oh, it's the TXV. Something's wrong with it. And they're messing with the TXV, and I'm like, well, what are you guys doing? And that's the light commercial guys coming in, touching bigger equipment that's got controls that are more advanced. That's got electronic expansion valves with systems that they've never seen before. And this is a system that was running 2 Danfoss compressors, the VLT drives on the scroll compressors, so they were very full variable with full reheat. Danfoss electronic expansion valves. They did a lot more than the standard system. And then these are guys that are working on small package units. And I was looking at the previous reports, and they were just doing more damage than good. And then so they finally hired us back. And then as soon as they hire us back, they're trying to have us figure out these warranty claims. And I think ultimately it got declined or something, because we weren't able to provide them everything that they wanted. And the insurance company was just a nightmare to go round and round and round and round. I mean, they were calling us once a week for 2-3 weeks, a couple times a day, trying to figure out, like, going back and forth on invoices and different things and figuring out why this unit went down. And it's like, I don't, maintenance really.
It's crucial.
Yeah, we've actually got a couple contracts that we've gotten from other companies just because they've either had a mild claim or they've actually talked to their insurance company as to what would be required, and they realize that their service provider isn't providing anything as far as documentation that they could use in those sort of situations. And that's where our documentations become so important on what we leave on site for the other techs, but what also we leave for notes and recommendations when we're leaving.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them even started. They sent out that one facility. They sent out another somebody in house from the insurance company to go inspect the unit. They wanted pressures. They wanted full data and records of the system. And I was like, I can't provide you what happened last year when we weren't
Yeah.
on site.
That's important.
They're, yeah. So some of those companies are pretty stringent. They want to know everything about the system for the last couple of years. I mean, they want full data, amp pressures. Uh, if it's water source, they want to know pump flows. I mean, you would swear that the person running this claim is going to be, is working for the factory.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why it's good to have that paper trail, right? Have everything on the email. So
All that's going to be
somewhere
so
at
much more
least.
important. All our vessels now are becoming scrutinized a lot more. Our relief valves on large vessels, it's all getting so much more scrutiny where you need the documentation, and they're going in and basically threatening to shut down equipment if guys aren't putting pressure reliefs on immediately or scheduling to have a rusty receiver replaced or anything like that.
Yeah, and as regulations change, it's gonna be potentially more difficult if they start to regulate things a little bit more in the name of safety, obviously, and uh, and where they're going as well with low GWP. I mean, you're gonna have to take care of all those things preventatively. You can't just be letting units leak and topping them off anymore. And so it's all good stuff, but it also requires a technician who really CYA, cover your assets,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to have a
Hmm.
paper trail of what you did and make sure that you're covered in everything that you do. That you're not just going in there doing something halfway. You have to really give a good explanation of what you did, and you can't just go in on your job and just be lazy one day and just think you're going to cruise by on another, especially on bigger commercial systems. Um, and it's always been like that with industrial refrigeration. If anybody that's done ammonia, I mean, you can't slack it. That's a big liability. You're talking potential property damage, life, people's lives at risk. There's a lot of different issues. And so you kind of have to have a big paper trail when you start dealing with some really industrial stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Yep.
CO2 is going to go that way. And some of those, big pressures, big sites, like I think CO2 is going to be the next ammonia industrial where the guys are going to be held to that higher level standard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen it with bigger systems even that are non we look at as an example, you get bigger chiller mechanical rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been in there where other facilities have had their maintenance guys basically just bypass refrigerant alarms because they're going off. And it's like, wait, hold on. This is an
Mm.
asphyxiation issue. Somebody goes in there, they pass out in a room, and then they die because your
Yeah.
maintenance team is bypassing safety equipment. Now the site is liable to major lawsuits. Not only that, but somebody dies. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Somebody now not going home to their family because companies want to be cheap. They want to bypass things. They want to avoid different things. And it's the same thing. It's the same issue with you'll see with fire protection. I mean, people start bypassing any fire protection devices and everything. It's a big liability.
Yeah.
So whenever you're dealing with anything massive, we have issues there. And it's the same thing with systems as we start to go to a lot of VRF equipment that has very large refrigerant charges. And we have small enclosures and small spaces where you could easily, have a leak and cause asphyxiation in an office because of a refrigerant leak. Let's say you got a system that's a VRF with 120 pounds. There's a room that ends up, that's an office that's closed off, the unit's leaking, and it's a big enough leak. Person's not paying attention, and they pass out in their own office. I mean, that's a potential issue. I mean, there's regulations and rules like, on that stuff, and it's only going to get more difficult, and especially as we start to go to A2L, the dynamics going to change.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, we had a big reset up here. God, probably 4 or 5 years ago. A little town in British Columbia called Fernie. They lost, I believe it was two industrial refrigeration mechanics to an ammonia incident. Some really good videos on YouTube describing what happened in the scenario. I don't remember all the details, but the long and the short of it was a chiller was started that was cross leaking that never should have been started, and that was just a small municipality trying to save some money, do some stuff, and almost every facility in that sort of condition got so scrutinized that they all got ripped down, tore out, DX refrigeration put in, skid packs put in. It changed a lot of the attitude for a lot of guys around where I am. But I think we've it's a little too far in the background now, and guys aren't quite remembering where that is.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so as you start to get to a lot of the industrial stuff, a lot of the big stuff, I mean, even especially if you're dealing with packing houses that have large refrigeration, I mean, Anthony, I know you've worked with some of that stuff, and you've seen some of those big date sheds that are out in the Coachella Valley, and
Yes.
you think to yourself, hey, there's 300, maybe 600 pounds, even 1,000 pounds of refrigerant, and they got forklifts driving around inside these places and everything, and I've seen guys go in there with the forks fully up, and it's just one of those guys accidentally rams right into one of those evapes, and
Mhm.
nobody's paying attention. Boom, it goes off. He's got his headphones in because he doesn't care. He's out there working. He doesn't realize he just smacked into something. He drives off, and now all of a sudden the whole packing shed's full of refrigerant. So
Yeah,
there's a liability there.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
had
yeah.
that a
So
couple years ago. Guy just drove away because he didn't want to tell the boss.
yeah, yeah,
It was
and they got to go back to the
a
security
sorting
guys. Find
cooler
out.
for a convenience store supply company. There was like 20 people in the room when he did it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and that's why it's
Dangerous.
critical to see all the safety equipment in there. We deal with confined spaces like that have large refrigeration systems with certain volumes. Um, it's very critical that we're making sure that we're testing and calibrating our refrigerant safety detection devices, and
Mhm.
that stuff's recorded. It's a big liability for a company if something happens and occurs, and a company has a maintenance contract on a facility such as like a date shed or a packing facility or any sort of transfer facility that has a large refrigeration system that's enclosed, and they have an accident where now the authorities are involved because there's a loss of life that occurs, and they find out that a company's been doing maintenance, but they don't know anything about really big commercial stuff, and they haven't been doing anything about the refrigerant detection system, and they haven't been calibrating it, they haven't been testing it, they haven't been doing any of that stuff, and they find it bypassed or it didn't work when the issue occurred. Now the liability comes back onto the company that's been servicing it. It doesn't matter if you're just doing, you've just been doing cleaning on condenser coils and washing the evaps and walking out of there. You're liable because you've touched it.
But
You're
even on the
on the
tech side,
facility.
you can't just assume that leak detecting system is working correctly or programmed correctly. I just finished when I did my gas swap on the last one. One of the last things I checked was the Emerson leak detector, and when I got up there, I realized that probably half of the leak detector was looking for the wrong gas because they'd already had drop-ins put in or gases changed, and nobody had
Mm,
bothered to update the system. So it might as well not be
Yeah.
hanging on the wall at that point in time.
I've seen that too. I've seen that too with new chillers dropped in.
Mhm.
Nobody updates any of the safety equipment. You got an you know, old R22 chiller system gets replaced, or whatever any of the old older whatever they were. I forget the 500s or whatever they were. That they had some of the older chillers. They go to a new one. Nothing ever got updated. The company just basically got paid to swap out the chiller, get a new one in there. They didn't include anything else. And it's almost imperative to cover your assets by putting that information in there and saying, hey, that if we're not including the refrigerant detection system service, we have to include that in our verbiage and say, hey, we're not servicing this equipment,
Mhm.
or we're not certified to service this equipment. We don't have the knowledge to do this. It has to be serviced by an external company, and put that information in there and let a company know that that stuff has to be serviced within certain intervals. Do a little bit of research, do a little bit of legwork, and tell people that. Because just because we don't service it in our company doesn't mean that it doesn't get serviced. I mean, personally, our company doesn't service any of that stuff. We refer to other companies that do that kind of job, and it takes the liability off of us. And we almost expect it from facilities that have enclosed chillers. that don't have that are a lot of basement level chillers and everything. We expect them that they do that kind of service, and we put it on them, and we tell them it has to be done. And if we need to, we'll even facilitate the scheduling and the call of it. We could, we'll bring in a third party contractor.
Hmm.
We'll handle the bill, and then just send them the bill for it, because a lot of companies that we work for don't have a very easy PO system. So they said, well, for us to set up a new contractor is going to be a bit difficult thing. Can you guys take care of it and then bill us for it? And then we do that. But it gets our liability, the liability off of us. Puts the ball in their court, lets them know, hey, that we don't handle this stuff. That's a safety issue, but it needs to be taken care of. And that's kind of a big deal. And especially a lot of companies don't want to handle it, don't want to do calibration, don't want to deal with testing of the safety equipment, and it's understandable. It is a big liability, especially if you don't have the knowledge or the trained professionals for it. So, but it's one of those things that if you're unaware of, maybe bring it up, do some research, talk to the customer, and kind of get the liability off of you. Because it's amazing what potential there is for bodily harm and injury, death, all sorts of things. People deal with that kind of situation. I did have a cannabis facility that had a system that ruptured, and it broke a cap tube, dumped 120 pounds into a grow facility. Somebody was in there working, and they weren't paying attention. Um,
Mm.
Person got real lightheaded, had some issues, had to get sent to the ER and everything. Basically, a lot of the refrigerant concentration gets trapped in the bloodstream, and it takes a while for it to get out. You're sitting there, no matter how much you're breathing fresh air, you're not taking in fresh air, and they just, they black out.
Hmm.
So there is issues with that, and so you have to realize, hey, what volumes of refrigerant are we dealing with? What are our local state regulations and local counties or whatever province, depends on where you're at, I suppose. What are the local regulations? What do they require? What are the volumes and the amounts of refrigerant per space or physical volume of a building? And is there a potential where there's harm to an individual, and bring it up to a customer sometimes. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So they afterwards they found out, hey, that's a pretty big issue. Nobody had brought that up to their attention, and they had an issue. Somebody got hurt. Somebody had to get to the ER and everything, and it was a pretty big deal for them. And it unfortunately it happened. And it was a big enough room, and they've never thought about it before. But with, of course, with a system like that, it was only detecting CO2 levels.
Hmm.
So the exhaust ventilation system never vented out anything, because they never had anything to vent refrigerant. So it kind of
Yeah.
became an issue for them. And that's something that I actually got to see personally. And it's a facility that we had just recently taken on and stuff. So it's kind of a pretty big deal to kind of get run into.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. Sometimes it has to take something that's fatal for them to actually understand what, the liability is, or as far as someone getting hurt in their facility to understand. But the more the knowledge is better. That's really the case. It happens, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
but
it shouldn't have to happen, but it does.
like you were saying with the third party involvement too, we've got a couple contracts that, just as far as time and scheduling, we bring in the third party guys to actually do the testing and calibration, and to purposely trigger their equipment to test interlocks and things like that, so we can guarantee at this ppm everything opens. It's not just my equipment works on this day and their equipment works on that day. It's we are all standing in the building at the same time.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, especially if you have third-party controls that you guys don't service or anything like that. I got a couple of buildings that have third-party controls, and so we have to bring in the third-party company, the technicians in there and stuff, to test everything and make sure that their BAS works and it's integrated with the safety equipment that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of companies really focus on mechanical. I know a lot of in SoCal, a lot of light commercial companies only do mechanical. So anything, as soon as it gets to light controls work, it's out of their book. It's not something that they want to touch. Safety equipment and devices, they don't know anything about it. They just know how to fix the things. And they start getting into, small chillers that are in mechanical rooms that are, open drive older open drive chillers that are, sitting there with an old like train or, open drive carrier. And they say, oh, well, I've worked in this, we've done this before. We got an older cat who's familiar with this stuff. And they start taking on contracts like that. And they only want to touch the mechanical. Now there's a lot of liability with that because by default, being a mechanical contractor touching some of this equipment, you're, like every facility, they immediately think you own it. But there's liability with that. So, even if you don't do any of the building automations, even if you don't do any of the safety equipment, you have to start getting people involved and you have to start documenting things, especially when they're unsafe. If you notice something, it's one of those big things. I've definitely been in those mechanical rooms when we're recovering. And of course, as you're switching tanks and everything, you get some refrigerant out there. And there's the refrigerant alarm system there. And I noticed, hey, it never triggered. I wonder what's going on with that because I know when I pulled off my hose and all my little condenser and everything, a lot of refrigerant went into this room. I wonder why that thing never triggered. You go look in there and you find it. Oh, there's no power to it.
Vac pumps are a great way to test that too. Old systems and vac pumps.
Yeah, it's and then obviously not a big deal if depending on the type of system, right? The old Centrovacs when they were running, you didn't have any issues with refrigerant leaking out of it, but when it's shut off and everything, that's when you'd have the issue.
Oh yeah, that's when it happens.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a thought. One of those things, we kind of always think about safety as hey, we're working with high voltage, we're working with mechanical things that could, take off your extremities, they're all, blades that are moving around, all sorts of things, and we're always talking about the heat, but there's so many other things to this industry that we're unaware of, and sometimes it just depends on what we're working on, and it's interesting to think. And then with A2Ls, that's kind of a new topic. They're going to be putting in leak detectors into the evap coils now. So kind of a new thought to residential techs, something to kind of open up their mind to that. And my thought is, where is this going to lead? How many guys are going to be bypassing refrigerant leak detectors because the unit's leaking in the evap coil on a residential unit? I've seen, we've all seen those hacks, right? So I'm going to start seeing TikToks about guys showing you how to bypass refrigerant leak detectors now.
Somebody's going to do it.
Don't do it.
It's something not to do. But
yeah,
we've seen the fair share of videos on the internet. You've seen those videos where guys are going over there pressurizing a mini split with oxygen, and the thing blows up. So there's gonna be a lot of examples of what not to do as time goes on, I'm sure.
I think the big thing for most of the big guys is that we're going to start seeing a whole new attitude towards safety coming from above and going down. I know I was at the supply house the other day, and actually one of the guys from Train was there, and he had one of those personal life detector belt clips. Looks like an old school pager that if you don't move in 20 minutes and it'll give you a warning, and if you don't pause the warning, it'll actually call the office. And if it detects low oxygen, high CO2, sour gas, a few other things, it'll automatically call your office. It detects a fall, it calls your office.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, especially depending on if you're working with confined spaces. Anytime that you're dealing with any sort of refrigerant that could be dangerous, especially like with ammonia. Obviously, that those guys carry around personal meters and things like that. Anthony's been there. He's heard some of those stories from some of those old school guys. He's worked with some of those old school cats that used to work on big old merchant marine vessels. That one of the most interesting stories was this older cat who was in the maintenance, who was in a maintenance department for a facility, and his previous experience was an engineer on a merchant marine vessel, and he was talking about his old ammonia refrigerant systems. And he says, yeah, you can definitely feel it poking at you when it's leaking. He says, yeah, we got a leak and everything. We could feel it burn on our skin anytime you got sweat. And he said there was a guy there on the ship who had hemorrhoids. He'd start walking a little funny when there was a leak inside the refrigerant hole.
When I was an apprentice back in the day, I did probably about 6-8 months doing rink retrofits in the summer with a guy. And he'd been doing it forever and a day. He was the type of guy that could walk into a room and I couldn't even get through the door frame. and he'd put a mask on, and he had a full measure when he was in a big room. He says, I'm good if nothing burns. Once the armpits start, then I gotta be scared. And he goes, once the testicles start to burn, I know I gotta get out. That was his measuring system.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen the T-shirt that says I'm an ammonia refrigeration technician. If you see me running, try to keep up.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
They were a different group of people back in the day. Wow. We have another whole division of our company that's ammonia guys. They're still different people.
There's still a couple of them out there. We still see every now and then we see a couple of little small ammonia absorption units in LA and SoCal. They're just still left there from the old days where they were on houses and everything, and somehow still working. Little small absorption unit or something that's kind of got a gas meter pup.
We got a lot tied into the oil field, so there's a lot of.
I think we lost him.
Back.
There we go.
I started talking, he cut me out. We still got a bunch of ammonia because we're really close to the oil fields up here. So there's tons of it being used up there. So a lot of our guys are in the plants for all that sort of stuff. Fertilizer plants, and then some gas compression and things like that.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of those cogen plants where they got a lot of waste heat that they could be using to move those to move that refrigerant.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's some interesting stuff. It's interesting stuff to see for sure.
Ammonia. No, not for me. Not for
What
me.
do you guys even
not
run
those
for?
stars.
Speaking of terrified and safety, what do you guys do for check-ins or anything like that on your daily basis, or just check in the beginning and hope you make it to the end?
As far as like like you're talking about when your job site checking in on you and everything like that.
Yeah, so if I'm on an 8-hour shift, I'm supposed to check in every 2 hours.
I mean, for the most part, not much. I mean, it really depends company to company. There's some companies that make you fill out JSAs. A lot of the factory jobs will make you fill out JSAs, and they'll have meters on you and stuff like that. Obviously for refrigerant, different things like that. And then they'll make you check in. That just depends on company policy. Out here, it hasn't been too much, but what we've done as techs sometimes is really just if you know that a buddy's working on something, just check in on him every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Call him up, make sure he's doing all right. I know I've had buddies working on some bigger equipment in some, it's like, hey man, I'm gonna be working on this unit again. This, you know how it is. I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, I'll check in with you before lunch and everything and see where you're at, and just check in with each other. So kind of been a more personal basis, just text checking on each other, looking out for your brothers out there on the trade. But as far as companies, it really just depends on how big the company is, what kind of policies they have. And unfortunately, until there's an issue, companies don't really implement any policy until it's too late.
Yeah, I'm just curious what everybody else is doing. Like, our dispatcher is super motherly. So, like, she expects a short little conversation with you in the morning to see how life's going. And then she wants to talk to you at lunchtime, too, just to catch up. So that's kind of the extent of ours is.
We'll check in after every call. We're supposed to check in. But as you know, some calls just take all day. So, or some projects are literally, you're just going to be there living for a week or two. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where we send a text message, hey, we're starting the day or something.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a PO for this? And then let them know. And then, it's just a general check-in. It just really depends on how your relationship is with the office staff. For the most part, most of the technicians are doing pretty light stuff at the company that I'm working with. I do all the big stuff at the company that I'm at. So most of the guys are checking in probably every hour, 2 hours or so. They're going and doing a service call in a residential unit, and I'm doing all the commercial stuff over here on this department. And so I don't check in generally too often with our office, but I do check in with the other guys that work with me. So we check in with each other, and it's just, one of those things. You start off the morning, you're like, hey, guess what? I'm back over at this place again. He's like, oh, let me guess. Is it low on charge? You know it. You go over there, you're dealing with the same thing, or you go out there.
We actually have like a tech-wide group chat and Teams where we can all just vent about sites and everything like that. And that one, no management, no anybody else is in it. And it's just, that's every 20 minutes it's going off. Somebody's got something to say.
Yeah, we got a couple of those. Yeah, we pretty much do the same. Check in the morning, and then definitely between calls. Again, like Kevin said, checking with their guys if we're working on different buildings, just seeing how the day is going. And definitely at the end of the day, checking out with dispatch, letting them know where you're at if you need to come back the next day, or you need something new for the morning. That's pretty much. Of course, we all have GPSs on our van, so
That was
they
going
know
to be my next
exactly where
question.
we're at. Yeah, yeah, they know where we're at. Lunchtime to, you know, work on the field and home. So yeah, they keep track of us pretty well. But yeah, that's pretty much how we do it. Sometimes, it sucks on a hot day. That's why it's always good to check on your guys. How they're doing. They try to give us some electrolyte, waters and stuff like that. Packets kind of keep us going for the summertime. And if we have any special requests, we definitely try to put it out there and say something during the safety meeting. So it's very important, definitely for
That's
sure.
a
Yeah,
pretty big deal.
we'll
Yeah.
run 2-man teams in the cold.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Just physically, it's going to take you twice as long. There's, sometimes where I've reached into the minus 45s where you can physically only work for like 20-minute stint, and that's with a half decent set of gloves on that you've got warmth and some dexterity in, and you just bundle up as much as you can, run onto the roof, do a few things, run back down, warm up, tell the other guy what you did, he does the same, and you just do that cycle back and forth.
Like,
Yeah,
tag,
it's
you're
a
it.
whole
You go.
Pretty
whole
much.
different world. Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys got to put on your bunny boots, try to climb up a ladder with these boots that have no dexterity. Your big old mittens. I mean, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah, and
brutal.
you're in like a full snowsuit that's half an inch thick. Like you physically weigh 50, 60 pounds more just to get to where you're going.
Jeez.
Yeah,
With your
yeah. So
backpack and everything, just
Yeah.
hauling. Yeah.
at least you guys could put something on. There's only so much we could take off till it's illegal.
Yeah, you're still gonna do way better than me, man. 120. I'm gonna be that guy in the hotel room with it sitting at 55 going, make go colder, make go colder.
Yeah, we've got a couple of job sites where the equipment's in some bad locations and some rooftops that are really bad. We got parapets where all the equipment's in one pit, right? On a flat roof. And so you get up on that rooftop and it's like 150 degrees on that roof because all the equipment's just cycling in there back and forth. And
Yeah.
so,
Hmm.
once summer comes for us, I'll be checking in with the guys, and I'll find out where they're at, and I'll see, I'll call up my dispatch team and I'll tell them, hey, did so and so already finish up with that job? And they're like, no, they're still there. And I'm like, all right, hold up, let me call him up and see what he's doing because, it's for us, it's a big deal. We've had guys that have passed out on roofs and everything. We had a guy that last year he got heat stroke just sitting there working on a condenser on the ground, and we had guys inside the attic. They were fine, but the dude who was outside, and in the attic was like 140 degrees, but the dude that was outside ended up just dropping. Luckily, the guy that literally just got off the roof or out of the attic, he had just climbed down and he saw the guy. The dude just was standing and he just dropped, fell down. I got to go take him to the ER and everything. He ended up, probably got behind the curve, didn't have enough hydration from previous couple of days, couple of weeks, and finally one day it just hit him all of a sudden, and it's bad
Hmm.
because once you get hit by that and everything, you're just not the same after that. You can't handle the heat the same either, so it just gets harder each time. And so kind of one of those things. It's a big deal to kind of check in with your own guys, make sure that they're doing good. Keep an eye on them. If you know that you got a buddy that's on a roof or something, call them up. Hey, dude, how you doing out there in this heat, man? It's 125 out today. You doing all right?
Yep.
Dude, I'm
Yeah.
dying. Get off the roof, go sit in your van with some AC. Where are you at right now? And then, you'll hit him up and find out where he's at. And sometimes I'll go by the guys and everything. I'll drop off an electrolyte and everything, go get them something to, drink, go down to the gas station, pick them up a electrolyte drink and drop it off to them, make sure they're doing all right.
Oh yeah,
Just
even the
kind of
guy
one
you're
of
not
those
that
things.
fond of, make sure he's still protected. And hey, man, I'm
Yep.
just finishing this job. I'm gonna be rocketing past where you are. You want me to drop a Gatorade on, but when I go by, and
Yeah, we're at the end of the day, we're all brothers in the trade.
Mhm.
We got a job to do. We want to just get home at the end of the day, be able to say another, hello to our family. And so one of those big things is checking up on everybody. And
Absolutely.
as far as it goes, sometimes not every company we have has that dispatch team or that customer representative team that checks in on us we check in on each other. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys out there that do residential work, and they still have to deal with it out here in SoCal. They're climbing up into people's attics,
I've
you know,
seen
in
that. That's crazy.
140-degree
Exterior
weather.
accesses and guys steal your ladders and stuff. Oh,
You know, and then you got the guy trapped up there and stuff. But every year in Phoenix, there's always somebody who passes out in the attic, dies. And the homeowner's like, hey, the guy's been up there for like 4 hours. I can't get him. The company sends somebody out there to go check on him, and they find the dude passed out and dead. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you got to check in on your guys, especially with that kind of weather. But you guys obviously have an opposite extreme, and that's even crazier too. Because I mean, with frozen roofs like that, you could always, if they don't have the proper railing around roofs out here, we don't have a lot of places with good railing around the roofs. But we don't have to deal with a lot of ice or snow. But I can imagine if you have a place where you just start slipping and you go right off the roof, there you go.
oh yeah. Like I'll do everything I can to remain back from a roof, particularly that white vinyl, like 10 feet in the winter, because you
We
get
get that
one
every
bad
now and
slip.
then too. That white vinyl early in the
Yeah.
morning, even because it's dry out here in the summer or in the winter. It's really dry, so the temperatures drop really quick. And the first thing in the morning, you're getting on that white vinyl and you just start slipping and sliding.
The
You gotta
worst for
stand
us is you get a thin layer of ice on it, then you get snow on top. So as soon as you step on it, it breaks the ice, and then you've got no friction, and it just goes.
I fell.
Yeah.
I know it's got me before in the morning time. Those
That's
white
why I
roofs.
switched from a hip bag to a backpack. Was I did a
Mm,
little of a herky jerky, and I don't know if my back's ever been the same.
Yeah,
mm.
we'll go from stepping on ice early in the morning to 70 degrees by noon.
Quick switch up.
We have these things that come through called Chinooks, and we'll get like a 25-degree temperature increase for like 48 hours, and it'll all go back again. So
Yeah, it's just
we're
wild,
back in the
wild
parka
stuff,
by
man.
dinner time.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah, I think we top out round about 100. So
100. That's on a
still
hot
pretty
day.
warm.
that probably where I am would be peak. If you go into like the lower mainland of BC, you might touch 120.
Hmm. Yeah,
Still pretty
that's
warm to be getting all the way down to the negatives.
Oh, that's where our equipment hates its life. Is the temperature sweep of our operating for ambient is huge. When Target first came to Canada, they actually spec'd all their equipment for close to the border, and when they started putting it in up north here, they actually didn't have enough to run through the winter. Not enough BTUs in the heaters, and the condensers didn't split properly, so all the condensers were logging.
big switch up.
It's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Well, what do you say, guys? We're gonna wrap it up here. We've been going a good, solid time here, so
Certainly didn't run out of.
stuff to say. Well,
Definitely was.
that's going to conclude our podcast session here. Hey, I want to say thank you guys for stopping by. Until next time, everyone, we'll be back. Talk to you guys again. Have a good one. All right.
See
Bye.
ya.
But